Settle in now. Let your shoulders sink into the pillow. Let your hands rest open and loose. And let your breathing slow, the way it does when a long day has finally agreed to end. There is nowhere else you need to be. There is nothing else you need to do. This is a story for the dark, soft hours, when the house is quiet and the world outside has dimmed its lights one by one. You do not need to remember anything from it. You do not need to stay until the end. You only need to listen, the way you might listen to rain beginning on a roof, a little at a time, drifting in and out as sleep decides, slowly, to take you. Chapter 2. The Night He Left the Valley. The first day on the road was the easiest, though Eli did not know that yet. The lane from Hollowmere joined a wider track that ran along the river, and the river, in turn, led down out of the valley toward the lowland roads that connected the small farming villages to the larger world beyond. Eli walked beside the water for most of the morning, listening to it talk quietly to itself over the stones, a sound he had heard his whole life and had never once thought to really listen to until now, when it was the only company he had. He passed 2 carts that morning, both heading the other direction, toward the village he had just left. And both times he stepped aside into the frosted grass to let them by. And both times the drivers nodded to him with the particular nod that travelers give each other. Not quite a greeting, more an acknowledgement that the road belonged to everyone and no one, all at once. By midday, the valley had widened out behind him into something he could no longer quite picture as a single place. The hills had gentled into low rises, and the river had grown broader and slower, and the air had lost the particular sharpness of his home and taken on the flatter, wider smell of open country. He ate a heel of bread and a wedge of hard cheese sitting on a fallen log, and he found, to his surprise, that he was not afraid. He was something else, untethered perhaps, light in a way that had a little fear folded into it, but mostly felt like the lightness of a boat slipping its rope. He had heard from a cousin who had once gone to the coast and come back with stories that there was work to be found in the harbor towns, loading and unloading the big trading ships, or further inland in the high pastures where shepherds needed extra hands through the lambing season. He did not have a fixed plan beyond walking toward the coast, since the coast, at least, was a destination he could hold in his mind, a blue line at the edge of imagination that gave his walking a shape. The first night, he slept in the lee of a stone wall at the edge of someone's pasture, wrapped in his coat with his pack as a pillow. And he discovered that the ground, even with grass on it, was a far harder bed than he had ever properly appreciated. He woke twice in the night, once to the distant call of an owl, low and rounded, like a question asked into the dark, and once simply because his shoulder had gone numb against the earth. Both times, he turned over, pulled his coat tighter, and let the wide, star-crowded sky above him do what it could to feel less enormous. It was on the second day that the road began to ask something more of him. The track left the river behind and climbed into low wooded hills where the trees grew close together and the light came down through the branches in thin, moving coins. The cousins' stories had not mentioned this part, the long stretch of forest road where there were no villages for the better part of 2 days' walk, no carts passing, no kindly faces to nod at, just the trees and the path and the particular silence of a forest in early winter, which is not really silence at all, but 100 small sounds layered so evenly that they blend into something that feels like quiet. He did not panic. This, later, he would think of as one of the first true changes the road worked in him. The discovery that fear, when it came, did not have to be loud. It could simply sit beside him, quietly, while he kept walking, the way an unwelcome companion might walk along without either of them speaking. He rationed what remained of his bread into smaller and smaller portions. He filled his water skin at every stream he crossed, even when it was not yet empty, because he had begun to learn, almost without being taught, the small disciplines that the road demanded of anyone who wanted to keep walking it. On the third night in the forest, he built a small fire in a hollow between 2 roots, more for the comfort of its light than for any warmth it gave against the deepening cold. And he sat watching the flames for a long time, his knees drawn up to his chest, his father's good boots stretched out toward the heat. He thought of his mother among the bees. He thought of the apple tree's branches against his window, and found that he missed that small, dry sound more than almost anything else, more than his own bed, more even than the meals he had once taken entirely for granted. He thought, too, of the ledger his father closed each night, and wondered, with a small ache he did not examine too closely, whether the numbers in it were any kinder now that there was one fewer mouth at the table. He did not cry, though he came close, in the particular way a young man comes close to crying when he is alone, and believes, wrongly, that there is some shame in it. Instead, he fed another small branch to the fire, and watched the sparks lift and scatter and disappear into the dark above him, and told himself, in the steady, half-convinced way a person tells themselves true things before they have fully earned the right to believe them, that he would be all right, that the forest would end, that the coast was still there, waiting, whether or not he could yet see it. He fell asleep sitting up, his back against a root, and dreamed, oddly, not of home, but of water, wide and gray and endless, moving toward him in slow, patient waves. He woke before dawn, with the fire long since gone to ash, his whole body stiff with cold, and for a long moment, in the particular disorientation of waking in an unfamiliar place, he did not know where he was or how he had come to be there. Then the trees resolved themselves around him, dark shapes against a sky just beginning to gray at its eastern edge, and he remembered. He stood, his joints complaining, and shouldered his pack, and looked at the dwindling supplies inside it with the flat, assessing honesty of someone who has run out of room for comfortable self-deception. He had perhaps one more day of food, if he was careful. He did not know how many more days of forest lay ahead of him. He started walking anyway, because there was, in truth, nothing else to do, and because some part of him, Some quiet, stubborn part that he had not known lived in him before this journey began, had already decided that he would rather walk forward into uncertainty than stand still inside it. The forest, as it happened, was not done teaching him things, but the next lesson would not come from his own dwindling supplies, nor from the cold, nor from the long gray hours of walking with hunger settling into his stomach like a stone. It would come instead from someone else entirely, someone who had been walking these woods far longer than Eli had been alive, and who was about to step out from between two old leaning trees directly into his path.